the last thing that we had done was secondary sources, the different type of secondary data. I'm going to overview it and then we're going to move ahead. Of course, we are moving ahead to facts and values and all of those things, and interpretation of data and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just sharing my screen. I have to send myself screenshots first. Right, so the last thing that we had done was secondary and primary sources of data, and we're starting from facts and values. Just to overview a little bit, secondary and primary sources of data basically meant that when you conduct a research yourself and you study that, all of those things. So let's say you have your own aim, your own hypothesis, and all of those things, that is primary research. So you're basically finding primary data. It's the first step. You start from the ground up and you find everything yourself. Secondary sources of data is basically when someone has already conducted a research and now you're just using that research to find out more about the society or find out more about a particular thing. So those were the two different sources of data that we had looked at, and how one is affected by the other or vice versa. Right now we're looking at facts and values. So within research, there are some things that are facts and the other things that which is basically values. So you need to understand what is a sociological facts. So in science, facts are said to be observable and measurable. If you go out in the rain, you can see it and you will get wet. In sociology, there is a long tradition of objectivity, the attempt to present a picture of the world as it is, not how the researcher might like it to be. So sociological facts as opposed to opinion based on value judgments. Max Weber, for example, argued strongly that the researcher should keep empirical facts apart from practical evaluations. So basically, facts are all of the things that actually exist in society. So in the sense that sociology has a lot of theories. So we say that we basically, the functionists have another theory, the Marxists have one theory, the feminists have another theory. But when we talk about general facts in sociology, we are talking about not theories but things that actually exist. So all of the scientific facts in society, all of the things that are realistic and do exist. So Max Weber said that these are actually empirical facts because they are practical, they can actually be applied. So the factual evidence, that the example that they've given us is that rain is a factual evidence that you can see rain, you can feel rain. So similarly, uh, when you talk about sociology, so touch is another factor that is a sociological fact. You can feel touch, you can see touch, all of those things. So anything that is tangibly there, tangibly as in something that you can feel or touch, that is basically the fact of society. So, however, Weber did not believe that social scientists have no values or be indifferent to the events that they observe in the world around them. Rather, Weber's uh, position was that the facts and values must be kept clearly separated and made obvious to the sociologists, audience, readers, and students. So this basically means that, again, Max Weber was talking about the fact that scientific study is basically sociological facts. Those are things that actually exist, and those should be kept separate from all the theories that we present. So those are completely separate facts and values. Um, Are we clear till here? Do we understand general definition of what facts are?
Yes.
Amazing. Values are those things that we hold to be important. For example, a belief in social justice and democracy. So anything that is valuable for us, anything that we think we value. So right now we value love, we value trust, we value adoration, we value care, we value respect. All of these things are basically values for us. These things are values for us. So because again, why? Because we value them. So the example that they've given us is social justice and democracy. So that basically means that we as a society, there are a lot of people in society that basically believe in social justice, they believe in democracy, and they value these things, that they believe that there should be these things in society. So these are not just opinions but things that holistically people think are important. So me thinking that having black shoes is important, now that's a personal value. That is not something that everybody in society is going to think is important. So some values are things that are holistically important. They're not opinions but generally what is important for everybody. So my opinion might be that we should all drive red cars. Now that's just an opinion. That is not a value. So that's one thing. So that's the difference. Uh, they're saying it is a controversial question in sociology as to whether there are any absolutely value neutral facts when it comes to the study of human behavior, and if it is ever possible to give a completely unbiased account of the social world. Now, what they're talking about is basically they're saying that they want to see that within society or within the social world, is there anything that everybody believes? Because values are things that most people believe, right? But is there anything that absolutely every person believes in? So within human behavior, is there anything that nobody disagrees with? So for example, if we sneeze generally with no hand on our mouth, right? So that might be considered to be normal general etiquettes in most societies. But there might be some societies who might think that as soon as someone keeps their hand, that they're being suspicious, or that they're being posh, or they're just egoistic, and they think that they're full of etiquettes. So again, there are not there is absolutely, generally it's believed that there is not a lot of things that are agreed by everyone. So they're talking about this, and they're saying that is it possible to find something that absolutely everyone agrees with? And that is exactly what they're generally looking at over here in the second paragraph. So if we agree that such a thing exists, and not all sociologists do, that we are in effect saying that is that the poor through their own actions are responsible for their own poverty and the future poverty of their children. Is that a fact or a value judgment? Now the example that they've used is the culture of poverty. Culture of poverty is a belief or a theory in society that people who are poor will remain poor. They follow this culture of poverty where they do not escape it. They do not want to escape it. They keep doing it, right? They keep following the culture of poverty. Now they're saying that how this can be either a fact or a value judgment, right? It can be a fact because it can be okay in real there are, it is a fact that yes, they cannot get rich, or it is just something that everybody believes that yes, poor remain poor. It can be a value judgment. So they have chosen this particular example, and they're asking us as an audience, do you think that's a fact or a value judgment? I think it's a value judgment because there are people who do escape poverty. So it's a value judgment. Most people just think this is true, that there is a culture of poverty. I don't think it's a fact. It's not proven yet. Make sense?
Yes.
Right. So then we've got structure and agency. This is highly related to having different values, basically, or having different factual information. So, the idea of social structure is central to the development of sociology. The fact that society exists would seem qualify as a value neutral, but there are different ways of looking at even this most fundamental idea. So, they're saying that when you talk about values and facts, the one fact so most people believe, or generally society exists, right? So I'm just making a statement, forget all about values and what. I'm just saying that society exists and you agree with me, and everybody agrees with me because yes, society does exist, that's why we are living in it. That is a fact because yes, it is true, it is factual, it is proven. Hence there is a fact that society exists. Now they're talking about the reasons as to why society exists. So society exists, that is a fact. But how did society come into existence? people have different views about that. So some people have believed that there is society just existed and then people came and live in it, and others believe that people made society, people built a society. So these are the two ways. So society exists, that's a fact, but how did it exist? That's a value consensus concept, because everybody believes a different thing. Nobody thinks the same thing, so it's not a fact. Again, repeating what I'm saying, society exists. This particular statement is a fact because yes, everybody believes that yes, society does exist. However, how did society come into existence? That has more than one view, and for because of that, basically, is having different views, and that is basically having values. So people, half people believe that society came into existence because of a particular reason, and the other half believes that no, it came into existence because of this particular reason. Now we are looking at those two particular reasons, we are looking at those two particular sides. So half people believe that society came into existence and then people started living in it, and the other half believes that people came into existence and they built society. Are we clear till here?
Yes.
Amazing. So we have one interpretation is that society exists independently of its members as a system that determines how people are able to behave within it. So this is the structuralist perspective. Again, that they're saying that society just exists despite the fact that people exist or do not exist, but society does exist. Compared to another view suggests that society is actually a collection of individuals who possess free will but through their actions establish relationships with one another, building a society in the process. So they're saying that their point of view is that there are humans that are within the society, and these humans interact with one another, and through this interaction they formulate a society, and this is called the agentic perspective or the interactionist perspective. So again, I'm repeating the two. Structuralist is basically saying that there is a structure of society and people exist within that structure and behave the way that they want to. Compared to what interactionists are saying, they're saying that there are people that exist and these people communicate and interact with one another, and once they do that, they basically formulate a structure called the society. So one of them is saying that there is the relation is forward, one of them is saying the relation is backward. We're going to type this out as well once we're done reading the whole thing. Right. So, functionists saw society as a structuralist perspective, which is basically as a system. From their perspective, the institutions of society were created to meet the needs of society, to feed and clothe its members, and to educate its children. They believed that the system was capable of adapting to changing needs, but individuals would always be based on rules and expectations enforced by sanctions. Human agency was needed only insofar as it satisfied the requirements of the system. Interactionism, on the other hand, does not see society simply as a system, but that organizes and controls human behavior. From the interactionist perspective, people create meanings as a consequence of their day to day interactions. They see people voluntarily creating society one day at a time as they make choices and take decisions. For example, whether to observe norms or ignore them. Now, this is something that I'm going to share my screen and a whiteboard and explain. So, right. Don't do that. Wants fun from. Come on, I don't want this. Thank you. I see. Right, so we've got structures. Don't mind the handwriting, I do better drawing. These
No
people say
worry.
that the society is here and it is basically handling the people. So it makes the people this is society. Whereas interactionists, okay, I'm not writing the whole thing, they say that there is people and these people collectively make society. This is what's going to help you remember it. So structuralists as a whole say that this is what we have, this the society, and it makes people interact. What its interactions say that this is people, they have the free will. We should write free will over here. Yes, he says that this they have the free will, and through that free will they formulate society. So they interact with one another. They interact. This one is interacting with him. He's interacting with her. She's interacting with him. So they interact with one another, and they have the free will to do so, and that formulates society as a result. That's one perspective. Now, one thing that you need to know here is that under this heading come functionalist. And why do they come under here? Because they say that society has a lot of, like, if you remember what functionalists say, they say that society has a lot of branches. So it has the media, it has school, agencies basically, it has family, it has work, it has crime. These agencies, this is what functionalists say, that all of these agencies are important in order for the smooth running of society. So technically they are saying that this already exists, and this imposes all of these things into people, and that is why they're called structuralists. So again, structuralists say that there is a society, it creates human who interact with another, and functionalists believe that yes, within the society there's social agencies which basically formulate the society in which these humans interact. Interactionists say, on the other hand, that there is humans who have the free will and they formulate society. Are we clear till here?
Miss, can you explain that a little bit again?
Yeah, of course. So basically, when we have structuralists, okay, they say that society, this circle over here, this already exists. Okay, it is a system that exists, and within this system live human beings who interact with one another, and they basically create, matlab, they generally exist in society. There was a society already, there was a system already, these humans came and they live in a society. On the other hand, interactionists say that no, there was no system, there was no society. Humans came first. Humans had a free will. Basically, they basically did whatever they wanted to. They started interacting with one another, and through that interaction, they formulated a system called society. So it is the opposite. These say that there was a system which created humans to interact with one another. These say that there was humans who interacted with one another and formulated a system. Are we clear till here? This much?
Yes. Yeah.
Also, are you a Muslim? Sorry, this
Yes.
is a personal question, but I'll just using to explain. So, for example, we as Muslims believe in interactionism. So we believe that there was Adam and Eve, okay, and they basically Hazrat Adam alayhi salam and Hazrat Hawa, and then they came and they basically interacted with one another, and then they formulated society. So similarly, on the other hand, there are religions that believe that there is just society. Also, this is not based on religion specifically. This is just a sociological theory. But I'm just using the example in order to explain to you what is the difference. Now, coming to functionalist, under structuralist, there are functionalists, there's also Marxist, okay? Feminists actually come under interactionist. Functionalists say that if you look at functionalists basically say that everything in society is amazing and that nothing is wrong with society. And they say that even the bad things of society are important in order for the society to function smoothly, right? So even when we were studying functionalists, we talked about the fact that even crime is important. So they say that there should be all of these agencies, and these agencies basically work together in order for the smooth running of society. This is the functionalist perspective. So, so how is it connected to structuralists? So, like structuralists say that there is a society in existence, functionalists say the same thing, that there is a society in existence which has all of these agencies, and these particular agencies make humans interact with one another. So the functionalists say that humans interact via media, they interact via school, they interact via family, they interact via work, they interact via crime. That's what functionalists say. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Right. So that is why the functionalists are considered to be in structuralists, because they say that the structure, which is media, school, family, work, and crime, this allows people to actually interact and formulate a society. Whereas if you look at feminists, they say that females just exist naturally and they have the right to do whatever they want to, and they should be the ones formulating society. That's how they're different. So these are the two views that you will need to remember throughout the chapter. Going back to the chapter, just 1 second, I'm having water. Right, going back to the chapter, we're done with the first paragraph. I explained that. In sociology, there is no agreement as to how people are motivated or act in the world. From one perspective, people are organized down. Listen to what I'm saying, right? So read from this, just try to highlight this in your head from one perspective. They have summarized the whole thing. From one perspective, people are organized by social pressures and constraints that are not the individual's choosing, which means that from one perspective, there is no free will, while from the other, people exercise free will and make choices. So one perspective where there is no free will is basically the structuralist, while the other is where people exercise free will and choice make their own choices is interactionism. Now they're giving us an example for the chemist, biologist, and physicist. There are things that can be seen and measured with at least some degree of certainty. They're just talking about science right now. However, the social scientist observation, studying families, education, crime, and social stratification, the observations they make and conclusions they reach are even more uncertain and open to debate. That is the challenge that all sociologists fail. So they're generally talking about now they're going back to the topic, which is fact versus value, and they say that the only fact is basically science, what science proves, and other than that, everything is considered to be value consensus. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, we're done with that. Let me see if these are loading. If they can load, I can just review once again. Very well. Now we're starting a new branch of this thing, but before we start a new branch of this thing, I know these are not loading for me, but I have sent them. Okay, they are loading. Amazing. Right. So, right. So we did. So I'm just overviewing the chapter for you a little bit. We did all the types of research methods where we did experiment, survey, questionnaires, interviews. We focused on all of these things, sampling, observations. We did all of this, and then we moved ahead, and then we did primary and secondary data. So secondary sources I just explained to you, primary sources I just explained to you, and within this we did qualitative and quantitative data. Quantitative is to do with numericals, and qualitative is to do with subjective things. And then we had longitudinal studies which are done over a long time period, and then we had case studies which are done with a small sample. We had ethnography, and then we had facts and values. So facts and values we just covered. We in understanding the difference between facts and values, we also covered the two ways people perceive society to exist, which is basically a value clash. It's not a fact, but it's a value clash because there's different perspectives. Now we're doing interpretation of data. So as the whole chapter has been suggesting that psychologists conduct research. So when psychologists conduct this research, they obviously find a few results. So when you talk about interpretation of data, it is basically calculating, collecting and calculating and just having those results with you. So right now, let's say if I'm observing a few people, let's say I'm observing 10 people. Now, whatever results I have had for them, I can't just put them scattered away and everything, right? So I need this proper pattern to, in order for me to have general results, like I need to present them in a nice way. I maybe need to make pie charts or graphs or histograms, whatever way, but I have to present my data in a way that it is understandable. So that's what they're talking about. That when psychologists are done, sociologists are done with their research, they have to analyze their data or put it in such a sense that it is understandable. So for that, they've given us key terms. This is more of math rather than sociology. So we'll just overview it. Average, we already know what an average is. It's the mean. Mean is the average. Mode is the most frequently occurring value, something that occurs a lot of times. So let's say if I'm calculating data for the ages of people, and a lot of people are 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. So that's going to be my mode because it's repeated that many times. Nominal data is a simple count. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ordinal data is counting in categories arranged to rank order. So me counting everybody who got A in one group, me counting everybody who got B in another group. So it's a little divided. Ratio data is measured on a scale from absolute zero. So it's measured on a comparative basis. So it can be 3 to 4. So 3 versus 4 is the ratio data. I'm comparing it with other things. Raw data is again your numericals that haven't been analyzed yet. So it can be just on a number line or anything. You don't really need to know this, but like just to understand it, you don't need to get into the details. Standard deviation is how widely your data is spread in a bell curve. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So statistics are basically types of statistics. Official how, why, what to do, why are they important? Because again, you have data and you have to present it in a certain way. So official statistics are produced by the government, for example, on crime and social attitudes. They're telling us why you should be familiar with these statistical terms or why you need statistics. So for official data, you need it. Government might need it to make some changes or for some inflationary pressures. Non-official statistics is basically when you need it for other reasons. Then you have nominal data, which basically means counting something normally. You have ordinal data, which basically means you assign categories and then you count. You have interval data, which means that you have to use some sort of scale. So from for the first 6 months, this was the data. Then the next 6 months, this was the data. Or the first 3 months, so that's a quarter of the year, this was the data. Then the next 3 months, this was it. Then the next 3 months, this was it, etc. You have ratio data, which is basically having a scale from 0. So that basically means a comparative data. So ratios are basically 2 to 1, 3 to 1. So 3 out of 1 students have A grades, like that. And raw data is basically general data. So I just have collected a lot of data. I haven't analyzed it in any sense whatsoever. An average is a measure of central tendency. You find average for many populations. So that's generally a measure of central tendency. Then you have, for central tendency, you have got three things. You've got mean, median, and mode. Mean is basically the average. Median is the middle number of your data, and mode is the most repeated number of your data. So my data could be 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 11. So 11 will be my mode because it is most repeated. Mean is going to be my average of, I'm going to add all of these and I'm going to divide them by 11. That's going to be my mean. And median is going to be my middle number. That's general math that we already know. Um, Standard deviation is basically how widely my data is spread. So if I have 1,000 people, how widely is my data spread? Presentation of data. So again, you use different tables. You use pie charts, you use bar graphs, you use histograms, you use line charts, all of these things. You use these to present your data. Otherwise, it's pointless to have that much data and not be able to present it. Looking at patterns and trends, how do you know what are the patterns and trends? So you will always look at your graph and you're going to see where your graph is going. So let's say I'm going to share my screen, give you an example. So right now I've got this that I made. This is my data. Now this is raw data, right? And let's say this, because I've divided it in February, this is going to be my original data because I have divided it, right? And this is my pie chart. This is my bar graph for it. I made a fancy one as well. Now this is my presentation for it. So instead of putting these many numbers, putting these many graphs, I just made a very fancy one, which was a comparative one. And now I use this in my presentation. Right. So that's what they mean by presentation and trends. Are we clear till here?
Yes, miss.
Here they've given us example. This is a bar chart. This is a line graph. That's it. Now we have practical issues. Practical issues basically mean that a psychologist or sociologist is conducting a study. They're wanting to conduct a research, but they need to have a valid reason in order to conduct a research. So, what are the practical issues that they will face in order to conduct a research? Practical issues in the sense issues that they can face in real life, issues that they can face tangibly in real life, not a thought issue, not a mental issue, but something that can actually happen. So key terms are controlled conditions, where basically variables are controlled. I'll explain this better. Grounded theory is a research method that allows theory to emerge from the data collected. Literature review is a critical review of your previous work on the topic. Plagiarism is copy pasting. So they are saying that also all sociologists and psychologists have to make sure that they are not making any practical mistakes, that they do not have any practical issues, that they are practically making it easier for themselves when they're conducting a research. So right, so that's what they're saying in the first two paragraphs. So now talking about the examples of what practical issues can be. Purpose can be one, right? So what is your purpose of conducting a research? So you're obviously spending a lot of money on conducting a research. So what is the purpose behind you conducting a research? What do you need? What are the solutions and strategies that you require? That's why the one thing that you need is purpose. That's your first practical issue that you might face. You might not have purpose of conducting a study, so you need to have that. Moving ahead, success. So your study should be a successful study in order for it to have practicality. So that is another practical issue, that you need to make sure that you've planned enough, or you've planned correctly enough for having a successful study. The method. So again, method needs to be decided thoughtfully. You need to make sure that you're choosing a method that is applicable. So for example, if I want to study children, I probably will not do it in a I probably won't do it in a field experiment. I would probably put them in a controlled environment and then do it. Or maybe sorry, when I have to study animals, I won't do it in a field. I will probably conduct I will have sorry, just a second. Yeah, so I won't do it in a normal environment. I will actually have a laboratory experiment. I will have a controlled observation. We have grounded theory. The natural sciences are built around a model of research that begins with the testing a theory. You establish the hypothesis built on previous theories. You can establish controlled conditions. So, like we looked at grounded theory over here, that basically means a research method that allows theory to emerge from the data collected. Now, that is something that whatever you're studying, that is something that has already been studied. So you have to use that particular data that you already have and then start your theory. It's not that you can start your research from scratch. You have to use the data that is already present and compare your thing with that data. So let's say if I want to conduct a study on destructive obedience, I will go and I will look at Milgram, because that is also about destructive obedience. I will look at his results, and I'm going to then I'll do my own study and then compare. Personal interest. So the ideal for all scientific research is to establish objective evidence-based conclusions. However, in the social sciences, the choice of what to research will often reflect a personal interest and previous life experiences. So this is another practical problem or issue that you might face, that you always want to do a research about your personal problems that you face, not something that will affect that you've noticed in society holistically, but something that personally you mind, and something that personally you need to personally find for yourself. So for example, even if you use Milgram's example, Milgram was a researcher who conducted the study on destructive obedience, and he did it because he, in his childhood, had seen all of it happening. So it was a very personal reason for him to conduct it. Background reading is another practical issue that you might face. So you need to make sure that you're reading all the resources and you're using it in your literature review, and you are not conducting plagiarism, which is basically you're not copy pasting it. Are we clear with the practical issues that there might be?
Yes.
Okay. Now we have ethical considerations that again a sociologist needs to keep in mind when he's conducting a research. There's 6 basic ones, but there can be more. But basic ones is, first of all, you have informed consent, which basically means that you have to tell the people that you are conducting a research with them about something. So for example, if I'm conducting a research about aggressive behavior, I have to tell my sample, my participants, that yes, this research is about aggressive behavior. Are you okay with taking part in it? So you have to inform them and then take consent. That's informed consent. And by inform, you can't lie to them. You have to be honest and inform them of the honest aim of the study, and then ask them if they want to be a part of the study. So that is basically informing them and then taking their consent. So when you talk about observations, there are also covert observations, which is basically covered observations. Those are not ethical at all because you are not taking informed consent. Then we have anonymity, confidentiality, and safety. Anonymity is basically you have to make sure that you are not revealing their names, you are not revealing their data, you are keeping them anonymous, whoever your participants are. Confidentiality is basically not using their data. So anonymity is not using their identity. Confidentiality is not using their data, not showing that okay, this is the data for Musfira, this is the data for Salia. And safety is that you need to make sure that you have protected them. So not that you are mentally harming them or their mental health is affected by the study that you conducted. You need to make sure that they're mentally okay and you are protecting them and you are taking care of their safety. Are we clear till here?
Yes.
Right, so they've given us an example for small scale research projects. This is not important at all. This is generally an assignment that they've given in the book, that do a research project. These are the practice questions. So let's look at the first one. Which of the following terms is used to describe an ethical consideration? A, B, C, D. I'm asking you the answer, not me.
Oh, sorry, miss. I don't know. Uh,
That's it.
you're on page. What page are you on?
I've shared my screen. Just look at my screen.
You know you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It must have stopped sharing, but here you are. So this is the question.
Ethical consideration.
Yeah, which of the following is an ethical consideration? Attitude, social class, ethnicity, or informed consent?
Would ethnicity be an ethical consideration?
No, no. So right now I just did ethical considerations with you. So ethical considerations are things that the sociologist needs to make sure that he's doing ethically correct. So right now what I was explaining about informed consent, that you need to you need to inform them as to what you're doing in your study and then take consent if you can take their data, right?
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So that's your ethical consideration.
Okay,
Um,
understood.
right. So identify and explain one advantage of using a questionnaire to research parents' attitudes towards education. Now I'm going to open the Google Doc. It's the same one that you've got. Sociology Saleh, that's the name of the Google document. I'm copy
Yes,
pasting
I'm on it.
this. Yeah, okay. Right. So we're done with the chapter. I want you to do this question first. I am highlighting it. Let me just share my window. This one. And then I'm going to do the 12 marker with you.
Is there a certain way I should structure it, or
Uh, I I have explained the way in which you should structure it, but I want you to for now, I would like you to just go with what you feel is appropriate, and then we can discuss the answer. Because
Okay.
you can go up and review how we've discussed how to do 4 markers.
Yeah.
You can go up and see. If you do not find anything, that's okay. Just do whatever you what write it the way you think it's fine or appropriate or correct. It's totally
Okay.
fine.
If I wanna, does it have to be like something specific, or can I do kind of like something a little bit general?
You'll have to give a general advantage, and then you'll have to relate it with this particular example that has been given. So parent attitude towards education, you will have to use this example.
Okay. Okay.
So you don't have to write it in the sense that one advantage seen from conducting it, because you haven't seen it, right? You don't need this.
Yeah.
uh, so putting this in italics, you just go ahead and write one advantage of conducting questionnaires is, with the advantage, this way parents parents' attitude towards etc etc. So this is going to be your example part, this is going to be your advantage part.
Okay. Okay.
And you
Thank you.
don't need to describe a questionnaire, you don't need this either, okay?
Not even like for like something like a background kind of
No,
sentence.
because this is
No.
just a core marker. So because they're saying identify and explain one advantage of conduct, so you can say one advantage of conducting a questionnaire. So you're identifying that advantage and explaining that advantage. That's one. That's 2 marks over there. Identification 1 mark, explaining it another mark. Example then you're gonna give based on parents' attitude towards education. That's 2 more marks. That's a 4 on 4.
Okay. Understood.
Okay. Are you having difficulty?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Um, Tell me one thing, right? So when we were looking at questionnaires, right? So we looked at, so I'll just give you a brief review and then we can see if we can find an advantage. So brief questionnaires is basically when you have a series of questions and the research, if I'm the researcher, I can just give it to people and they can fill those out. It's like MCQs, right? So do you think I can give it to a lot of people?
Yes.
Yes. So that's one advantage of it, that I can get a lot of data, correct?
Yes.
So let's say that's one, let's discuss it more. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing is, let's say when I have a questionnaire, I can have, because I can add, it's MCQs, right? So when I'm checking MCQs, don't you think it's easier for me to check MCQs?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
just choosing ABCD, I don't have to read any answers. So again, it's objective, it has a lot, it can be easily analyzed. That's another advantage. So let's say we go and use the first one. So I can go ahead and I can write, let me just change the color. Let me write, one advantage of using questionnaires is that they are in they can be conducted with a larger population. This is identification part of the question, which will get me 1 mark. Then I will go ahead. This way, the researcher can have a lot of data to analyze, data that they can analyze for valid results. Now I have explained my identification. So they said identify and explain, right? So I have first I identified, then I explained. That's another part. So how do I? So one advantage of using questionnaires is that they can be conducted with a larger population. I have identified the advantage that they can be conducted with a larger population. This way, now what is the what will happen if I have this advantage? I have identified it, but what's my benefit? So I'll say that this way the researcher can have a lot of that data that they can analyze for valid results. So that basically means that researcher will have a lot of data. That's basically the benefit of having a questionnaire with a larger population. Now I will relate it to the example. So to research parents' attitudes towards children. When researching parents', or we can say a questionnaire on parents' attitude towards children can be filled out by or can be or if you don't want to use this vocabulary just yet, so you can say or giving insight. So what I've done is now I have used the example. So I've said a questionnaire, or actually, you know what? I've got a better one. Wait, sorry. There you go. I related it to parents being busy. You just have to think in a normal life setting, parents will obviously be busy. So I just said that a questionnaire on parents' attitude towards children can be filled out online. So when it's online, so the parents who are busy, they won't mind that. They don't have to invest a lot of time. They are just doing it online, filled out online by parents, which will make it easier for them as they are busy individuals. right? Because that's a generalized perspective that parents are busy. This will also help getting more data in less time because it's online and you just fill it out in your own time. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Right. So we will the 12 marker is something that we're gonna do in the next class, which is Thursday. Thursday also, I think the class is going to start around 4:15 only. I get home at
Okay.
4. I just have to just take a quick namaz break and then I just start class. So
Sure.
right. So we're gonna discuss the 12 marker at the start of the class, practice something, and then we'll do this for 20-25 minutes, and then we're gonna get to the next chapter. Okay.
Okay. And Miss, can you send me the screenshots for the
Absolutely. I'll
text?
just do it before I forget.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.